What's up guys, my name is Ace, and now that we've had a full solid day of playing the Vanguard Beta, I'm starting to notice a few more issues and a few more things that I'm not particularly happy with and that I feel could use some tuning. Thankfully, most of the issues that I have at this point seem like they're things that could be very easily tuned and tweaked and fixed. And the big one that I wanted to talk about in today's video is the visibility, but not so much the general visibility. I actually think the general visibility, if you're just walking around the map most of the time, I think the general visibility is just fine. I can see character models generally with no problem. There are a couple areas on Red Star, the snowy map. I'll say there are a couple issues there where there's some areas where there's just a little too much haze, I feel, in the environment. But outside of that, the general visibility seems just fine to me, and keep in mind I'm playing on a PS5, but I play the PS4 version so I can use my SCUF controller. So that's what you're seeing in the background is the PS4 version of the game running on a PS5. And also keep in mind I have both world and weapon blur turned off, as well as the depth of field setting. I always turn that off, even though it automatically resets itself sometimes, I've noticed. I'm always checking pretty much every time I get into a game. I always double check my depth of field, and if it turns itself back on, I always turn it off again. But the main issue I've noticed with visibility so far is when you're actually in a gunfight, when you're firing your weapon. This is where visibility falls apart completely, and it's arguably the most important time to have at least some form of visibility so you can make fine adjustments to your aim and your recoil control so you can stay on target and finish your kill. That's where a lot of the skill in a gunfight comes in. So let's break this down and have a look at a few situations to show off what exactly I'm talking about. This is the STG-44. Keep in mind with this, I've got subsonic on this as well as a suppressor. So this should be absolutely minimizing any sort of muzzle flash or any visibility issues while firing the gun. There shouldn't be a really bright tracer. There shouldn't be crazy muzzle flash or anything. And this is me not firing the gun. Visibility looks generally fine. There's a little bit of haze if I was looking at a person that's on the boat, for instance, and perhaps that could be cleaned up slightly, but overall, I've got no issue with the visibility right now. But then, let's look at this situation one frame later when I fire my gun. Just look at how much smoke is coming off the gun right now. And again, I'm using subsonic as well as a suppressor. There is no muzzle flash, I'll give them that. There's no muzzle flash here, but I would argue that this is worse than muzzle flash. It's super smoky. If there were any targets that were directly in front of me there, I would have a very hard time being able to see that character model. If they were by that tank, for instance, that's right in front of the boat, which you can probably hardly even see that there is a tank there. And that's just the first example of a visibility issue, and that's covering the smoke effect that's added when you fire. Next up, let's get into an LMG with the MG42. This is something I notice especially on LMGs, and I think it was intentional for some reason. Once again, this is me not firing the gun. Everything looks nice and clear. No issues with visibility at all. However, the moment I start firing, everything becomes blurry, even with an optic here. And in my optic, things are really blurry right here. I can't see anything that's going on in the center of my screen. And this feels absolutely terrible in the middle of a gunfight where you simply lose track of your target the moment you pull the trigger. Now, part of me thinks since it is so pronounced on LMGs, this is an intentional design decision and one of the downsides of using an LMG. And I just gotta say right up front, I strongly disagree with balancing a weapon in this way. Maybe a specific attachment or something, you could balance it in that way to keep an attachment in check, but an overall class of weapons, I don't think this is a great way to be balancing guns. Muzzle flash is one thing, but actually blurring your vision and having a bunch of smoke that lingers around for longer than just a frame, this is a big problem to me in a multiplayer PvP environment. But finally, I have another example that's probably going to be quite surprising here. This is using the machine pistol, and there's a big thing that I noticed with this gun in particular that was extra pronounced. This effect does exist with other guns as well, but it was more pronounced on the machine pistol. Again, I want to show you before I start shooting, everything looks generally fine. There's a little bit of haze and smoke that's lingering there. I had recently thrown a stun grenade, so that's actually from the stun grenade, which is a fairly neat effect, but again, I wouldn't mind seeing that toned down a little bit. I do think the quality of the visibility and gameplay should be coming before cool, artistic, or even realistic effects like this that could negatively impact the gunfight. But like I said, this isn't my big issue with the situation here. My big issue is the moment I start firing the gun. Look at the amount of distortion that happens while firing this gun. What am I supposed to do with this information? How am I supposed to adjust my aim? How am I supposed to control my recoil to make sure I'm staying on target when my target literally looks like this? This makes absolutely zero sense in a PvP environment, And this doesn't appear to be an accident. This doesn't appear to be just like a performance issue with the game. This is pretty clearly an intentional visual effect that they've added to the gun. And it's not just present on the machine pistol. We also see it a little bit in the STG screenshot I showed earlier. If you look at the tire of the truck, that's also distorted quite a bit. But in either case, this particular effect, in my opinion, has zero place in a multiplayer PvP environment. If you want to keep it for campaign, that's fine. But when it comes to multiplayer, I'm not asking Sledgehammer to reduce this effect. I'm asking them to scrap it entirely. The targets themselves shouldn't see distortion like this if we're trying to compete against other players. I shouldn't be punished for firing my weapon. I shouldn't have to guess where my target is because they're literally warping around the center of my sight. Muzzle flash is one thing, and as long as muzzle flash isn't too overly pronounced and it doesn't stick around for more than a frame or two per shot fired, I don't have much of an issue with muzzle flash. It's all these other effects on top of the muzzle flash, like the distortion and the massive amount of smoke that's coming out. It almost seems like we're firing black powder weapons here. All of these effects need to either be considerably reduced, or in the case of that distortion effect, completely removed, in my opinion. This, in my mind, would significantly improve the gameplay, and it's really one of my biggest issues at this point. The other big issue being sound design, but as far as I can tell, I think the sound design is actually bugged at the moment, so I have quite a bit of confidence that there's going to be a lot of adjustments made to audio. But yeah, when it comes to these video effects, I really feel something definitely needs to change. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I just wanted to dive deep and show off exactly what I'm talking about when I'm referring to visibility issues in this game. It's not so much the map, it's what happens when you start firing your weapon. Now, of course, I'd like to hear in the comment section below, what do you guys think about these visual effects that they're adding when you fire your gun? Do you feel they need to be either toned down or removed completely? And also, what are your thoughts on the general visibility? What about the visibility on the maps themselves? Like I said, I do feel like that atmospheric fog could be reduced a decent amount on Red Star, because there are several lines of sight that are very, very difficult to see through. But I'd like to hear what you guys think down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.